Good afternoon and welcome to Independent Conversations, the podcast that allows indie folk all over Scotland to come in and have their say about how they feel about politics in Scotland and the independence movement as a whole. Today I have Beth, and Beth is a woman that has been involved with a lot of stuff that I do with independence, and she is fanatical as I am. Hi Beth, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well, Mo, thank you.
It's good to have you here. I'm really pleased that you've come on. So let me thank you in advance for the time that you're giving up today, which is wonderful. Listen, tell me a little bit about yourself first of all, please. Like where you stay, what you do. If you want to do that, you can go into it. You don't need to go into a lot of detail, but introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, well, hi, I'm Beth. I'm 34. I'm just a average working class lass from the Scottish borders. I'm a mummy and a wife. I love animals and collecting rare and tropical plants.
That's amazing. I never knew that you liked tropical plants at all. I knew you were a mummy and you liked animals. That was well obvious. What sort of plants do you have? What's your most favourite one?
Oh, my queen anthurium.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a very, very beautiful tropical plant.
Well, after we've recorded this today, I'd like a picture in Discord so I know what it looks like, please, because that's I don't know what it is. I don't even know what colours they are, which is quite funny, you know.
I will send it through, no problem.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Right, so we'll just get into the questions. These are the same questions that I would ask every single person that comes on to Independent Conversations. And feel free, if we end up going off on a tangent speaking about stuff, that's cool as well. I'm quite happy with that. And let's do this. So the first little question that I've got here is, when did you first become politically aware in your life?
That is a brilliant question. For me, I first became politically aware at a very, very young age. I was a tot, a tiny wee bear.
Wow.
My dad was in the British Army, and at that point, I was being brought up by my nana and my granny. And I remember them vividly shouting and being upset and crying at the TV.
Oh no.
They were being, it was kind of like scary. It was coming through because they were scared because my dad had been sent off to war
Right.
by Thatcher.
Mm.
And at that stage, I wasn't really fully aware or understanding of politics as such. I just only knew that my dad was away because, that lady.
That lady made the decision to
Yeah.
send your dad away from you to go and defend the interests of these islands, which Britain at the time, not really anything else. Does with that then, would you say that your mum and your nana, were they like anti-Thatcher, pro-Thatcher? Were they frustrated with the situation?
They were frustrated with the situation as a whole. I don't think they agreed with it at all. And on top of that, I think they have been always vivid Scottish independence supporters as well. My nana especially, and my granny can obviously quite a bit more.
Mm-hmm. Have they been members of the SNP then, or were they members of any other political parties that were pro-Indy when you were young?
I don't remember. At that age, I do not remember what political party they aligned with. At that age, I was just so tiny.
Mm-hmm. So when after being less tiny, when did you consciously say that you started to take an interest in politics in Scotland, when you started asking questions about it more, rather than sort of like wanting to throw cushions at the telly as a tot?
As time went on, Ken and my dad was sent away on mere deployments and tours. I too began to become angry at Westminster. The older I got, the more and more I understood, the more I wanted away from the overlord's control. I mean, the truth is, it really started in high school when I became an avid supporter of the independence movement. I loved debating in modern studies. So I was about 14, 15 when I knew that Scotland needed to be independent.
Was there a trigger at high school then? Or did you have an influential teacher? Was it just that you looked at the situation and made that decision? What actually triggered you to become more interested in independence as a whole?
I think the trigger was the years before that. watching the TV and listening to my nana and my granny. It was very influential from their behaviour and their thoughts and feelings that drew me into politics. And I came to the decision that actually we could do this better by ourselves.
My name's Robert, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
Right, Beth, so you said that you became kind of politically aware from an early age with your mum and your nana shouting at the telly when your dad got deployed or, getting a bit upset and frustrated. And as you grew up, you became part of that collective feeling the same way. Was there something specifically, though, that drew you to independence compared to just getting frustrated about your dad being deployed?
Oh, I fully blamed them. I fully blamed them. It was their fault. This never needed to happen.
So it was
and
like
I feel like if
only-
Scotland had been independent, it would never have happened.
That's a perfectly fair thing to say. And yeah, you know what? It might have been the case, or it might have been that we had less of an involvement with the roles that were going on there. Have you always considered yourself to be a yes voter then?
100%.
And did you ever think that, prior to 2014, did you ever think that we would ever get the opportunity to vote in a referendum?
I did, yeah. I definitely did. I knew that it would come up eventually. Most definitely. What I didn't expect was it to come 2014 and Scotland vote no.
That's scary, isn't it? How did you feel when that happened?
Confused. Utterly confused. I was kind of bemused as to how this could be. How can anyone say no and remain the UK when we have the possibility of grabbing hold of our own future and making it better for everybody here? I was very confused, and that confusion turned into disappointment, a little bit of frustration, and then I just got the heat down and just carried on because there was nothing else for it. I just accepted and moved on.
During the 2014 referendum, did you do any campaigning at all?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Did you?
I was not a member of SNP at that point. I was a very young voter. I just knew that I wanted them and that I wanted them to get me to independence.
When you were experiencing that campaign, what did you feel about the Better Together campaign?
They were very much fear-mongering, pushing false narratives, and I found them to be very forceful, especially when they were knocking around people's doors and tirading them with the fear-mongering face-to-face at their own front door about pensions, about being dragged out of the EU if we didn't vote to stay. It was dire. It was dire.
I found it embarrassing, actually, that they couldn't come up with a better argument other than scaring the population. Now, the upside of all this, I want you to think about this for a second. The upside of it is, even though we lost, the lessons that we learned as a movement just through that whole process were spectacular. People looked to that, and then there was an evolution of politics through the next few years leading up to the Brexit vote, the in-out of the EU vote in 2016. People could see that a lot of the rhetoric and the promises made with the vow and various other things were just nonsense. And the lessons that we've learned as a movement from there, I find, is that we will never believe a Better Together campaign again on the back of it. And they know this. They've got nothing to campaign upon now whatsoever. The Saltire is also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and TikTok. You will find the links to follow us on all of them at www.thesaltire.scot/media. Do you feel that the union works for Scotland?
Absolutely not.
What's
No. And further to that, I've never believed that it has ever worked, especially not for Scotland
yeah?
or our people for that matter.
I feel that we're taken advantage of.
Oh, definitely.
We're an energy rich nation. Can you imagine? Okay, I put this to unionist friends of mine that still don't understand that we have the majority of our resources, our taxes are all distributed from Westminster as opposed to from ourselves. And
Yes.
I put to them there it was like if Scotland was independent when we discovered oil, do you think that we would have just hoarded it? Do you think that we would have just like kept it to ourselves? And they say, well, we probably would have. I says, no, that's a unionist attitude. I don't think that we would have given it away, but I really feel that the people, our closest neighbours, would have still benefited from like far cheaper oil and energy from our discovery, because we're not going to be like horrible about it. And they turn around and point the finger and say, well, I don't believe that would happen, and that's fine. But I firmly believe that back in the 70s and 80s, when they started to explore and pull oil from the North Sea, that if we were independent, we would have been quite flexible and happy to trade at incredibly reasonable prices for our neighbours, if not, give them some for nothing. I just don't understand how, at the end of the day, the union, in its whole complex way of doing stuff, just wants to take, and then try to make out that they're the good guys at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this has always been my opinion from since I was a teenager, when I was a lot more clued in to the political framework and what was going on. That this union only works for Westminster, and
Yeah.
even when they give the devolution, this devolution is only granted by their decision, and no by Scotland.
Do you
This
think
is it.
Do you think that if you look at Wales, for instance, do you think there's people that feel the same as us down in Wales?
Oh, I would say so. I mean, I'm quite active on TikTok, as you know,
Mhm.
and I've came across a number of independent supporters that are Welsh, who want Welsh independence.
So collectively, when we look at the union kind of not working for Wales as well, people feeling that way, do you think there's another way we could do it? What about federalism? Do you think that would work for Scotland within the union?
In my personal opinion, absolutely not, and that is mainly due to the great distrust that I have for it being upheld. Just because there's been too many times that we've been lied to. There's too many promises being broken. And for me, and possibly for others, I don't know, at this point, I feel like it is the point of no return for the union in my eyes.
Yeah,
Indy is now essential.
I agree with you completely for that. If there was any feasible possibility for a federal UK, I strongly feel that we need to be independent first to negotiate into it, rather than sort of like be forced to take it. Because whatever federalism we're handed to by the union is never going to be as good as a federalism where we're actually negotiating as an equal partner. From, like I say, from my point of view, if federalism was going to come to Scotland, it needs to come by us choosing it as an independent nation first and not having it forced upon us. I think Wales and Northern Ireland would probably feel the same way as well about that.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I would think so. I just see that being a sensible option for Scotland. We need independence to safeguard us for any future takebacks.
My name is Glenn. I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
So it's been quite an incredible week in Scottish politics, and when I wrote these questions out, Nicola Sturgeon was actually still the First Minister of Scotland, and she isn't anymore. She resigned, and this whole little section here is specifically about Nicola Sturgeon. And how do you feel about Nicola Sturgeon, first of all, as just as a person, from what you believe her personality is from both the media and, articles you've read about her. What do you think of her?
As she stands as a woman, I think she was a remarkable woman. She achieved so much in her time as First Minister and in her life. As far as she is now, it's just highly commendable. It's admirable. And I used to look up to her quite a bit, especially in my younger years. I used to think, wow, she's amazing.
Yes.
And she was a great leader. She was a great leader for us.
She was perfect. She was, I'm not like an SNP or Nicola zealot. I admire people wholeheartedly for their achievements. And she's been in the Scottish independence movement since she was 17, politically since she was 17, moving through the party ranks and things up to the high office of First Minister. And I thought she was great. I mean, 8 years, winning every single election, very positive. I thought she was a great SNP leader as well. She's had some sort of scandals. How did you react to the sort of scandals that she's had, like, for instance, as SNP leader, being very positive, etc., but coming up against things like the ferries, how she answered those stupid questions, if you want my honest opinion, the Alex Salmond debacle, and then obviously the gender politics that we've been experiencing over the past couple of months. How do you feel about these sort of instances that, how did she handle herself? Do you think it was, admirable?
I think she handled herself extremely well, considering the amount even the sheer vast amount that it was coming thick and fast from all corners.
Yeah.
And she still stood her ground, and she still stood there and answered with grace.
Yeah.
She was very graceful in her answering.
Very professional, very statesman-like is the phrase that I like to say. People will turn around and wholeheartedly disagree with me, but if you were to stand there beside any other politician in Scotland, including, let's just say, I call them the Three Stooges, which is Douglas Ross, that Stephen Kerr, and Murdo Fraser. I call them the Three Stooges in my head because they've got nothing good to say. They're like an anti-comedy trio. They're just bitter and twisted. And, you stand Nicola beside all three of them, in fact. You stand Nicola beside all three of them, okay? And they just don't stand, they don't pass the test of any form of scrutiny, these three. They're just there to cause disruption. They're just there to point the finger, and every time they asked a question, they got totally destroyed in the Parliament by a statesman,
That was always the highlight of me watching First Minister's questions. I mean, I literally turned it on just to watch them be completely annihilated. It was entertaining. She did very, very well. On
the surface, I can look at the horror story, which is social media, and say quite without any reservation that the terrible things that were said about her. When you look at male politicians, they don't seem to get half as much evil, horrible, disgusting comments thrown at them across the Twitter sphere, in Facebook groups, even on TikTok and things. If that was a man, people would be horrible about Boris Johnson, but I still think that Boris Johnson got it easier than Nicola Sturgeon, with regards to the terrible things that was said about her. But how do you feel about the SNP now as an entity, as a political party, and how do you think that they'll take us through to its independence?
SNP, I mean, I've voted for SNP in the past, and their policies, they align with the way that I think and how I would like Scotland to look. Will they get us our independence? I hope so.
Yeah.
I really do hope so, but I am concerned that it has taken this long already for us to be where we are now.
So I kind of look at that the same way as you. They align to what I want. There's a few things that I disagree with them. The majority of stuff I do agree with them. But my whole thinking process around politics is not really the day job politics. It's always about independence for me, and I find that is far, far, far more important for me. But I look at this since 2011. There's been two massive phases of independence rhetoric happening here. You've got the Alex Salmond years and you've got the Sturgeon years. So Alex Salmond got us a referendum, okay, which Nicola's not got us a referendum. Okay, so that's, I'm not comparing people or trying to put her down or anything. Then during the time that Alex got us a referendum, he took us from about 20 to 45%. Okay, that is a remarkable, an incredible thing to happen. Now, the next 8 years of consistency from Nicola Sturgeon kind of maintained that and above 50% on some occasions. So you're talking at least 45, hovering around 47 to 50, and even up at one point to 58% of people in Scotland wanting yes. So I physically see that as a 50-50 starting point. So Nicola leaves us with a maintainable 50-50 starting point for the next opportunity that we can have to have a legal ballot box event to express our need for independence. And I think that in itself is a remarkable feat, and she should be commended for that as well. Not many people think of that as a whole, but it's to be able to maintain and hold a 45 to 50% pro-independence population is very tough, considering the amount of propaganda that is crammed into our houses and on the papers every day,
Yeah, definitely.
I am Mo's mum, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
The SNP are just one set of political parties in Scotland that are pro-independence. We have Alapa and the Scottish Greens. How do you feel about, first of all, Alapa when they came on the scene, and was it 2021 for that set of elections? What went through your head when this party popped up?
I was kind of in a state of shock. I was like, oh, hello, welcome back. Or no back, what's going on? Yeah, it wasn't expected, but then at the same time it kind of was, if that makes sense. I knew that when he left that wouldn't be the end.
Yeah.
He was never wanting to leave it like that. I mean,
No.
Alapa as a whole, I feel, are still kind of small just now, although they are gaining numbers. I like, this might be a bit touche, but I kind of like the forcefulness and somewhat the aggressive mannerism.
They demand to be listened to. I sort of find that. I find some of the behaviours at their fringe edges, and also in the fringe edges of the SNP as well, and even people that are not aligned to parties, that there's a toxic element that fight amongst themselves over that day job politics element, and if you don't sort of like align to what they want to talk about, you're kind of the enemy. It's like the old clans of days gone by, where the clans would fight amongst themselves until they had like a common enemy. And our common enemy is obviously the union, but we don't have that battlefield yet where we can turn round and say, right, in 12 weeks' time, we're going to be putting a cross in the box for yes. I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with my Alapa and my SNP buddies, and we will take down Westminster together. And then we can start fighting again when we've got our parties in Holyrood.
Exactly.
That's what I'd like to see. But so I kind of try not to get involved in that whole sort of thing. But I think Alapa have their place in Scottish politics. I really, really do. I think that there's a lot of positive policies there. There's a chunk of them as well that I wholeheartedly disagree with. The same way as I disagree with things in with the SNP. Would they get my vote? I don't know yet. Because I'm very tactical with my second vote. Do you think you'd vote for them with your second vote where you are?
I think as the same with you, Mo, it is very tactical. So my second vote's literally going to go to whoever's going to be having the most numbers in my region.
Yeah. The thing is with your second vote, and not many people understand how this additional member system works, and the DeHont mathematician calculation, which sounds very complicated for people, and how that actually operates. So the easiest way to look at it is that second vote, which whoever you're voting for, whether it be an individual or a party, in your region, they need to reach at least 4% of the votes before they're even considered to be counted. So a good place to start for anybody is to go out and go on the internet and check out what that party actually got last time round, how many more members they have in that region, and see if they can work out if they've got 4% or more for that second vote. Scottish Greens, though, what do you think of them?
The Greens, I feel the Greens are much the same as the SNP. I feel that they're playing and beating around the bush just too nicey nice when it comes to independence. I think they do have a place, Ken, in a Scottish independence for the same reasons as I've said before.
Yeah.
That the approach of the Alba will appeal to some.
Yeah, agree. I think the Greens, they're actually a little bit more left-leaning, even more so than the SNP. I kind of like them for that. I think that they're quite good because I'm pretty much a left-leaning person. They got my vote, my second vote in the last election, and Lorna Slater is one of my MSPs in Lothian. So I kind of like them. I don't think that they're too awful of people. I think they have their faults, like every other sort of political party. But again, they have their place in the movement. And the latest poll says for Holyrood that they were going to double the amount of seats. And that would take... yeah, totally. I mean, that would take the INDY bums on seats in Holyrood to being a 23-seat majority, which that's not really what the union and unionists want to hear right now. They don't want to hear that after Nicola's gone that a poll says that they're going to do better. You know, that's just it.
I think that's brilliant.
Have you ever been on Twitter and seen the Twitter bubble that these people live in as well, the toxic fringe? Have you ever experienced the nonsense that they talk about?
Yes, very much so. Not so much on Twitter, mostly on TikTok.
Yeah.
I feel like they both start with a T and they're very, very toxic both places.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm not as active on Twitter as I am on TikTok, and it's a lot.
It's
a lot.
Social media as a whole, though, okay, the independence movement is really obvious. It's often attacked by those believing in the union. Have you got anything you'd want to say to these people that are just out there to cause mayhem, disruption, and mess with people's mental health with constant evil, horrible, berating arguments against you, even against me? I mean, I've experienced them, you've experienced them. Have you got a message that you would like to send out to them?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. What would you like to say to them?
What your comments and your memes and all the rest of the stuff that you do to try and take us down is never going to work. And it says a whole lot more about you than it does about us.
Well done. That is perfect. When you started to get horrible comments and had that negativity thrust upon you, how did you feel? What was going through your mind when you saw that?
Initially, shock that people actually conduct themselves in that sort of manner. In this day and age on social media. I didn't quite understand why I was surprised, because it does happen. Trolls are going to troll.
Trolls will troll. That's right. That should be a hashtag, shouldn't it?
Oh, 100%.
Trolls will troll. Trolls will troll. Please, anybody that's listening to this, please use, if you're ever trolled, use trolls will troll as a hashtag.
No, I love it. It's brilliant. Trolls will troll. I think, like, as you said, your skin gets thicker the more you go on, and it does become water off a duck's back. But sometimes when they hit so low, that I do think they're fully understanding how their words might affect somebody.
Yeah.
And their mental well-being, which is very sad. Where the lack of humanity, they just lose all humanity. Then
it is.
And therefore, you're not even a person at that point to them.
You're just a target. You're just a thing there to turn around and berate. And I find it quite funny, right, at the end of the day, how there's a certain element within social media, they will latch on to you like an evil fanboy, okay, and make it their purpose in life to berate you, to try and bring you down, to constantly argue against you. And now, after, a good number of months being on TikTok, it never really bothered me to begin with. But now, see, when I see any of you guys getting it, I get quite angry. Like almost like, without sounding condescending, like a bit of like an angry dad. It's like, how dare you? Like James tonight on that live, I won't name any names for the people, but I found the gentleman quite condescending with what was said to James. I was like,
Very much so.
it was a
Yeah,
shame because he was a good guy. He had a lot of positive things to say, but then it kind of like, wait a minute, you're not going to sit there and say that to James. I'm going to stand up for him,
And that's the beautiful thing about our group and our movement in Indy, is that even though we are all very different, we don't all align with the same political party, but we all have clubbed together for independence. And I think that strong bond that we have together about going forward as one, no matter our political stance, that we're moving forward as one, is intimidating for them, frightening even, that we are so unified in ourselves to get independence that is a threat to them.
Going back to the experience of that chap tonight in James's live, I kind of had time to reflect afterwards about it, and I thought to myself, here we have somebody, okay, that had quite a constructive, positive things to say about Scotland, but still reverted to that unionist, I'm better than you kind of attitude. And I kind of felt sorry for it. Yeah. It was awful.
Gave it with one hand and then took it away with the other.
Yeah, it was like...
And I found many of them are like that. They give it with one hand and take it with the other.
Yeah, it's a damn shame that people behave that way. There's no constructive argument at all from it. Have you ever had a constructive argument for the union, experienced one at all?
No, I am now, 12 years later, still waiting for a great answer for that, and never, ever had one.
I'm the same.
I don't suppose I ever will. So I'm just coming to the realisation, just give up on the question, because it's never getting answered.
My name is Hero, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
Right, so we have the potential of a legal ballot box event in the form of the Westminster general election next year, a plebiscite, a de facto referendum, a de facto election for being used as a referendum. How do you feel about that? Using something else other than an official referendum to express our need for independence?
I feel like it should never have come to this, and that we should have been given the referendum in the first place by way of Section 30.
Yeah.
It should have been handed to us on a platter. Yes, Scotland, here you go. Go for it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's a travesty of democracy for Scotland not to be given that. There's been, the SNP with pro-Indy backing from the Greens have been in power and won every election since the actual the referendum itself and before. It's not just a mandate for having a majority, it's a mandate for the election results. If people didn't want to engage with the independence question, Labour would be in power just now in Scotland. It's as simple as that. But they're 100%. Not. But they're clearly not. The whole thing for me with regards to using Westminster though is the franchise voting system for it doesn't allow the people that are 16 or the EU nationals living in Scotland to have a vote in that. However, a Scottish general election does. And there's a whole little process within the Scotland Act 1998, as you're aware of, as I'm aware of, that could eventually trigger that. And we're kind of in the cusp of that potentially happening just now. What would you prefer? Would you prefer it to be a Scottish general election or a Westminster general election to use as a plebiscite?
Hands down, a Scottish general election.
Yeah. And why is that? Why do you feel that would be better compared to a Westminster one?
Well, it's none of Westminster's business. This is
Yes,
Scotland.
brilliant
This is
answer.
Scotland.
This is
It's none of your
Scotland.
business.
I'm just
This is
picturing me in my Spartan warrior outfit now going, this is Scotland. That would scare the children though, wouldn't it? That would be awful. But no, it's, oh man, this is Scotland. I like that. That's brilliant. Maybe we should do an indie warrior calendar in the style of Spartans, for
love it.
charity. Yeah, no, I'll take the photographs. So I'm not taking part in it, okay? I'm going to put that out to the community and see if anybody's interested for shits and giggles. That'll be funny. Yeah, so, yeah, I agree with you 100%. It should be Scotland because this is Scotland. It's nothing about Westminster. If we have to use the Westminster election as one, the media spotlight is on the whole of the UK as opposed to just Scotland. We need to be incredibly selfish about this, in my opinion, like ridiculously selfish. Will you be campaigning on the run up to an independence vote? What will you be doing for that, do you think?
Well, I'm very active on TikTok most days. Of course, I'm in Discord here,
Mhm.
and then I am also available on Twitter. So I will be doing most of my campaigning that way through social media. That way, I didn't need to be disturbing people by chapping on their door. I'm
Yeah,
easy accessible by logging onto your phone, and I'm right there in the palm of your hand whenever you please.
that's a great thing. That's the beauty of the digital technology. You are in thousands of people's living rooms at a time.
Yes, exactly.
They share their dinner with you. You don't even realize that. And you share a bus journey with them, a walk with
Bus
them.
journey. They could be
The-
doing their laundry.
Exactly. Looking at Scotland as a whole, we get a lot of Scotland bad rhetoric in the media that we're too wee, too poor, and we're a bunch of benefit junkies, and we've got nothing
Yeah.
better to do than be on TikTok during the day. I kind of laugh at that. It's like, how do you feel about that? Being told you're a benefit junkie?
These false narratives have been pushed by the absolute media machine that is in this country. The media machine, it seems unstoppable,
Mm,
but we still crack on anyway.
yeah,
There's so much that many Scots now believe the propaganda themselves.
that's a shame, isn't it?
It is, and it's so frustrating as well as astounding, Mo, because even when you give them a debunked propaganda that they've created in the BBC or ITV or in the newspapers, where even when you debunk it with the facts, they still choose not to accept it.
I know, it's a shame.
And they're just too far gone. And
It's-
sometimes it feels impossible.
These people that are too far gone, though, they're never going to vote yes. They might spurn to a particular football club. They might be in a particular group of people that like to do marches. They might want to do things, and they have to be allowed to make up their own mind. But I feel that our energy is wasted trying to engage with people that we know have their heels so far dug in and are
Yes.
so sycophantic towards their nostalgic beliefs and what their family voted for that they can't see past the being ruled over as opposed to having their civilization managed in a positive way, because that's what it is just now. Our civilization is not being managed. We're being governed and ruled over. Whereas the devolved Parliament of Scotland, with all the positive things they've done, like your baby boxes, the free prescriptions, the bus passes, we could go on and on and on with that list. I don't believe that any of that would have come if there was a union party in place. I don't think we would have baby boxes, just taking it as a whole. If
Most
Labour or
definitely
Tory, if Labour or Tory were in,
they wouldn't even give kids free school meals down south. That's how bad that is.
yeah,
They wouldn't even feed the school kids.
that's disgusting. It's a disgrace. It took a footballer to change their mind. It's not a footballer's job to do that.
No.
It's politicians. This is the problem with career politicians doing that. I think I had a discussion with my mum this afternoon, all right, about Nicola resigning, and my mum turned around and said something that I found that I never thought about it. And a lot of people will disagree with me, but unfortunately, the authorities and everything else will disagree with them because there's no proof to any accusations. She was an honest politician. You know that? I kind of feel that way. There's people that will be critical of her, but she doesn't have a criminal record. She doesn't have a straight up scandal, about having parties during the COVID lockdown or taking Russian money or anything like that. She only had the best interest of our country. So when people turn around and say we're too weird, too poor, and a bunch of benefit junkies, I look to somebody like Nicola Sturgeon as an example of something positive and say, look, this is what we've done. And we voted this person in. How dare you say that we're those things? Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. My name is Mo, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet? What is your vision for Scotland's future? For the people, first of all, what do you think would be amazing in an independent Scotland for people?
Oh, this is a big one.
Yeah.
It is a big one. I see Scotland in her people. Sorry, we see the people in Scotland having a brighter future with more opportunities, especially for our younger children as well. I see a lot more opportunities for them coming to build on what we already have been given. Thanks to Nicola and the SNP to build further on that. And for Scotland as a whole, I would say I see us being very outward looking, forward thinking. And I think that with the wealthy resources and trade, technologies, industry, kind of the list goes on.
Yeah.
We could build a fairer, freer country, providing all these amazing opportunities for our people and our children's future. I'd like to get a seat in the UN with Scotland written on it. That would be great.
That would be amazing. And it would be amazing if they spoke Gaelic there and everybody had to have a Gaelic translator.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? That would be astounding.
That would be brilliant.
I'm going to put you on the spot now and give you a little platform to sum up about how you feel and what your message to any future campaigners and campaigning for independence would be. You've got the stage. I will switch my mic off and shut up, and you just tell me when you're done. And it might be one sentence. I might be here for an hour, depending how much you've got to say. But go for it. The stage is yours. You tell me how you feel and what you want to say to the people of Scotland about voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Mo. I feel that now is the time. Now is the perfect time to take back what is rightfully ours and not to be ruled by some strange person down south who has absolutely no idea really who Scotland is or who our people are and what our people want and what our people need. I will always ask the question is, why are they so desperate to keep us? Why? That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you so much for being so honest, so chatty and bubbly, and having such good things to say. It's been brilliant. It's been absolutely my pleasure to be here.
It.
That's good.
I've really enjoyed it, Mo. It's always great speaking to you, and thank you so much for having me here.
No problem. And I will say goodbye to everybody as well just now. So that is our first recording of this podcast, Independent Conversations. It was with Beth, and it's been great fun. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please do, comment and like this on YouTube and wherever you actually come across it, because share it with people, because these are your ordinary people that are fighting for independence every single day to better your country and your children's future as well. And go away and ask yourselves, after listening to this, what are you doing to make Scotland's future a more positive place?